Hello, welcome to Charity Matters, a podcast series from Muckle LLP, where our lawyers chat with guests from the charity sector who have first-hand experience and insight about topics we all care about. This week is Trustees Week, a week dedicated to celebrating the achievements of nearly 1 million trustees across the UK. In this bite-sized podcast, we speak to some of our lawyers who are also trustees in their spare time to find out about their experience as a trustee and to share useful tips with our listeners. I'm Carla Boaks and I'm a charity specialist lawyer operating out of Newcastle upon Tyne in the north of England and advising charities and social enterprises across the country. Without further ado, let's introduce our first guest, Alison Jones. Alison, would you be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at Muckle and your role as a trustee?
Of course. Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here, so thank you for inviting me to celebrate Trustees Week. And as you said, my name is Alison Jones and I am a senior lawyer here at Muckle and I work in the sports and charities team. So very passionate about that sector, the not-for-profit sector. And in terms of my roles, I probably started, I suppose, joining non-for-profit boards maybe about 10 years ago. So when you were a baby, Carla. And I've been on several boards since then. And at the moment, I am on the board of Newcastle Theatre Royal, which is, surprise, surprise, based in Newcastle. And also on the board of MOLA, which is a London charity.
Oh wow, that's fantastic. And I'm interested to know, Alison, why should someone be a trustee in the first place? What were your thoughts on that?
I suppose for me, I know people have different motives, but I've always been passionate about giving back. And I don't know whether that stems from being from a working class background, so the first person that went to university. And I suppose I feel like I've got here just through hard work and not from much support, although my parents are very supportive. So I've always been passionate about giving back. And so being a charities lawyer was a natural fit. And then sitting on the boards of charities, also a natural fit. But in particular, I have a passion about arts and culture, which is why my two current roles are in that sector. And I was also, before then, I was the chair of Sunderland Empire Theatre Trust.
I did notice that the charities that you're a trustee of are both in that cultural sector. So by the sounds of it, that isn't just a coincidence. That's something that that is deliberate.
Yeah, for me it was deliberate. I think when I've been choosing which boards to sit on, I have deliberately targeted charities in that sector. I think for me, given, as you know, a trustee is a voluntary role, but it's a really serious role as well, because if things go wrong, they go wrong for the charity and for you personally. So I feel like in order to give my all to a charity, I need to be passionate about the cause. So that's why I've deliberately tried to sit on the boards of cultural charities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned there a bit about the time commitment. Can you talk to us a bit more about that, sort of how you balance that work-life balance with the taking on that trustee role?
A lot of people ask me that actually, but particularly because I sit on the board of two charities. But it goes back to the passion as well. So if you're passionate about it, you're going to do a good job and you're going to find the time to make it work. I think you can give as much or as little time to the role as you wish. I suppose typically all charities would expect you to attend a few board meetings a year. There might be an away day as well. But you've got to factor in the preparation time in between the meetings. There might be a project that kicks off that requires you in particular to support on because of your expertise and experience. And bigger charities tend to have subcommittees. So the two charities that I'm on do have subcommittees. So I'm on the Finance and Audit Committee for one, for example, and the Recruitment Committee. So you can give as much or as little time as you want to the role, but just make sure you dedicate sufficient time to make sure you're fulfilling your duties really.
And I guess that comes back to being passionate about the cause that charity is supporting, because for you having that interest in the cultural side, I guess then you naturally feel like you want to put more of your time into that charity because you have that passion for the cause?
Yeah, I would say so. And I suppose I'm always a bit of a geek, always like learning as well. So I said I'm sit on the audit and finance committee. Don't know anything about numbers, but I'm learning quite a lot from the people that do sit on those committees that do know a lot about numbers because they're auditors and accountants by profession. So as much as the charities hopefully get from me, from my legal expertise and things that I bring to the charity, I do get a lot out of it as well. Not only just feeling like I've trying to enhance the cause, but also from a learning point of view. I'm meeting people as well that I would never normally meet in everyday life, but we're all sort of bound together by the same passion for the cause and all get on for that reason, even though we're all from different walks of life and chalk and cheese.
So it sounds like passion for the cause is something that you need to be bearing in mind when you're choosing which charity to become a trustee for. What would you say are your other top tips for people who are looking to be a trustee and trying to pick that charity that's the right charity for them to become a trustee of?
Oh, that's quite a good question, that, Carla. So passion for the cause was definitely for me the first top tip. I would say time commitment. So what time can you give, and does that align with the expectations of the charity? Because all charities are different. Some people have spoken to me and said location's an issue, and they were surprised that I was on the board of a London charity when I'm based up in Newcastle. But since the days of COVID, hybrid meetings are a thing nowadays. Or luckily at Muckle, they're very flexible and really passionate about giving back to communities. So we have that flexibility to travel to meetings and work around those. So I suppose travel might be one point to think about. And I suppose what skills the board is looking for as well on that charity, and does your skill set match what they're looking for as well? I would say they were the top tips. Do you need any more?
No, that is brilliant. Thank you very much. That was excellent. And thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hello Hugh, welcome to our Charity Matters podcast. Thank you very much for joining us today. It'd be brilliant if you could start us off by just telling us a bit about your role at Muckle and your current trustee roles that you have.
Right. Thank you. Yes, I am a partner in the corporate team. I also have the senior partner title. That's frankly nothing more than really a long service award. And I'm a trustee at present of two charities. One, a community charity based down on Teesside, and another charitable trust set up by a substantial client of this firm.
That's fantastic. And I understand you've also previously had a lot of other trustee roles. And I wondered sort of if you could tell us a bit about those and maybe why you're so passionate about being a trustee.
Yeah, gosh, it probably goes back quite a long way, and I suppose there's an element of personal stuff in there, Carla. But I've always thought that as lawyers, as corporate lawyers, we're incredibly fortunate. We're in a fortunate and privileged position, and therefore I've always thought that it's incumbent on us to try and do something to help the broader community. I also get a lot of satisfaction from doing something that is what you might call selfless. In other words, there's no immediate personal gain for it. You're doing something for somebody else. My link probably goes back to our connections with the Community Foundation. They first introduced me to a very small community project called St Chad's Community Project in Benwell that was helping disadvantaged young single mums with childcare issues. I then subsequently became a direct trustee of the Community Foundation. I was involved with them for a 10-year period, and that's a huge and very different charity. Alongside that, I was also a director and trustee of the William Leach Foundation, which again is another very different but very substantial Northeast based charity. So I've done a mix of different roles. They've all been satisfying in different ways.
Yeah, and definitely what you're saying there about giving back to the community, that's something that really resonates with our Muckle values as well, as your own there. So that's brilliant. And so it's clear you have a lot of experience of being a trustee. What could you pass on about the role of a trustee? What are those key things about being a trustee itself that you've learned really through the years?
Yeah. Okay, I suppose my initial response would be, if you're thinking about it, then yes, definitely go for it, because it is incredibly satisfying. What the role entails does depend to quite a large extent on the size of the charity with which you're involved. So in my experience, I talked about St Chad's Community Project, a very small one. Then you've got the Community Foundation, which is vastly larger and better structured. What do you need to do? I'm a great fan of the Charity Commission. Not everybody is, but as you'll know, there are some very, very good guidance reports or topics, whatever they call them, on their website. So I would recommend to anybody that you look at them, so you've got a broad understanding of trustee duties. Then, is it too simplistic to say it's almost a matter of common sense? You need to listen to what the issue is. If it doesn't feel right, then it probably isn't right. Don't worry too much about the regulatory side of it. It's a lot of common sense.
Yeah, and then sort of following on from that about is this common sense side of it. Where have you seen sort of the key challenges for trustees come in? So have there been any instances that you could share with us where you've seen a sort of a challenging side of being a trustee?
I think the management of, no matter what size your charity is, the careful management of finances. I mean, you understand the pressures in that sector. Being aware of the finances, and I'm rubbish at finances, but having an understanding of the finances it is fundamentally important. Other pressures, they are different. They differ so much depending upon the sector that the charity's in and the work that it's doing. I can't really pick up any particular examples, but I suppose I would say that, if trustees are in any doubt, they shouldn't expect that as a trustee body, however big or small they might be, that they've necessarily got the answer. And this isn't a plug for professional services, but they should take advice if they aren't sure what they should be doing.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. I guess sort of taking account of everything that you've said there, what would be your top tips that you would give to someone on how to be a great trustee?
Well, go back to what I said before, go for it, but before you go for it, take some time to think about where your interests lie, what the areas where you would particularly like to give your time. So again, from a personal perspective, my Christian faith is very important to me, so I've tended to graduate towards faith-based organisations just because that means something to me. But it doesn't have that. Medical research, if that's your thing, look for charities operating in that area. Old people, young people, disadvantaged. Go for something where your interests are, and then, in my view, you'll find it even more fulfilling.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. And thank you very much for your time and joining our podcast.
I've enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Hi Lydia, welcome to our Charity Matters podcast. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Would you be able to start off by just introducing yourself, telling us a bit about your role at Muckle and your trustee role?
Yeah, so my name's Lydia Stewart and I'm a solicitor in the real estate team at Muckle, and I've recently become a trustee at Choices, which is an alternative all girls school provision in Bedlington, based in the northeast, and basically it's to help girls who have been kicked out of school or they have circumstances which mean that they can't go back to standard form of education, and it provides an alternative educational institution for them.
Oh wow, that sounds like a brilliant charity to be a part of.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you've just become a trustee of the charity,
Yes.
so that's really exciting. And what made you want to become a trustee?
So I'm part of the community team at Muckle, and they were a charity that we'd previously provided some funding to. So that they'd been brought to us through our sort of community representative who introduces charities to us and has the connections. And just on a whim, Hugh and Debbie went to go and meet them, and they said, did I want to come with them? And this was in December 2024. So I decided to go along just for fun. And I ended up meeting the girls and going round the school and meeting the teachers, and I just thought it was really lovely and amazing, and I thought just the environment they created for these girls was such like a safe place, and it seemed really just like a really good safe environment for these girls. And I care a lot about women's education, particularly young women's education, and sort of having equality of education for all people. So I was really like the cause anyway, and then afterwards basically they'd followed up to say thank you for the visit, and they asked if I would like to become a trustee, and I said of course, because I was very happy to do it.
We recognise at the moment that there are a lack of young trustees in roles, sort of on boards across all charities. And as yourself, as a young trustee, could you sort of tell us about why you think that young trustees are underrepresented on boards?
I think it's a mixture of things. I think the main thing, because this was primarily what it was for me, is that I was worried that I didn't have the experience to be able to do it. I didn't really know what a trustee did. I'd heard the word thrown around a lot, but I actually didn't understand what it was, to be honest, really. And I'd done little bits of charity work and support, but I'm in real estate, so it wasn't the main kind of work I would do, so I didn't really have much knowledge about it. And yeah, I think I just assumed that I would need to have a lot more knowledge than I did. But actually, I had a lot of talks with Hugh in the team, and he basically had said that it's more about bringing sort of a new perspective, bringing different ideas. You know, we're not giving legal advice, that's not the job, it's just being a sort of sounding board. And I said, oh well, I have opinions and I have thoughts on things, so I was like, actually I could give it a go. So I think it's like lack of knowledge and probably like lack of awareness of the roles. People don't know about them probably as well.
No, I agree, and there's, like they say, there's that perception that a trustee is someone who's older with more experience, and that is just sort of a perception that people have. So what do you think that charities can do to help break that perception and really encourage young people to become trustees of their charities?
I think it's difficult for some charities, particularly for Choices was a bit of a funny one because it's a bit more sensitive and private, 'cause it's sort of young women in vulnerable positions and things like that. So that was a little bit more kind of just happened because I went to see them. But I think for other more open charities, things like social media channels, just doing some advertising in that way is probably helpful. I think charities speaking to companies they work with and getting them to sort of put it out to the young people as well, because I know we did some recent training about trustee roles with Muckle, and they talked about sort of letting people know those roles exist, and it's sort of our purpose champions can do that. So I think the charities can do it themselves, probably through social media and stuff, but then firms and people associate with them can help them as well, because it's probably hard for them. They don't always know what to do, or they don't always know how to put themselves out there. So probably a bit of a mix of getting support and doing what they can themselves on social media and stuff, I would say.
So using those channels to really reach that sort of younger audience and to take on those roles. So just to finish us off, would you be able to talk to us about your top tips, what you would give to someone who might be considering taking on a trustee role, not sure whether they've got the necessary skills and experience to put themselves out there? What sort of advice would you give to them?
I think if you're hesitant or feeling a bit unsure, it's just knowing that you do have knowledge, you do have experiences, you do have perspectives. You might not have as many experiences as someone who's a little bit older, who's been around the block a little bit longer has, but you do have opinions and thoughts by the very fact that you exist and you are an intelligent young human. So I think it's remembering that and not feeling like you're at a disadvantage because you don't have as much time in the world, you know, just you being you is enough. The second point I would say is maybe finding someone who's been a trustee for a longer time will be helpful. I'd mentioned that I spoke to Hugh about it, and he was really comforting, and he helped put me at ease. Because he's had a lot of experience, he was able to give me some advice and sort of make me feel relaxed about going for it. And I think the third thing would just be to pick something that you care about, because that's the easiest way to, in my opinion, to become a trustee, because it's just very natural. Whatever that is. So for me, it was, in this particular scenario, it was young women finding a safe space to have education when they weren't able to in a school environment, or they're from backgrounds which mean it's really difficult for them to learn. And I think that really hit, that really touched my heart, because we're not all so lucky, and not everyone's born in a safe space to learn, and it's a really important thing. So yeah, it's just finding something that you care about, your passion. Just think about what you care about in your day-to-day life, and then I think there are so many causes out there, you'll be able to find something that you care about. Yeah, and
it's really interesting that you mentioned that finding something you have that passion about, because that is a message that was resonated through our previous podcast speakers with Alison and Hugh on earlier. So yeah, it's definitely a message for everyone to find something that you're passionate about, and find a charity that supports a cause that really resonates with your own personal interests and passions. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Lydia, for speaking to us today. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So that just leaves me to say a big thank you to our speakers for your participation in today's bite-sized podcast, but also a huge thank you for the time, commitment and effort that you bring to your charities to help them thrive. To remind listeners that if you have any questions about any of the issues discussed in this podcast, then please do just reach out to us, and keep an ear out for future podcasts coming soon.